one of my favorite all-time authors we have in the house back again. James Kaplan, the author of Sinatra, the Chairman. Boy, I'll tell you, this is a great book. And
Thank you, Steve.
Sinatra, the voice, last time around.
Frank the Voice, Sinatra the Chairman.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what makes this one different? It starts in 1954.
Yes.
He's just won the Academy Award for?
He's just won the Academy Award for From Here to Eternity.
He plays
Private Maggio. Yes.
Tell everyone why Maggio, that character, is so significant. Sinatra believed he was Maggio.
Sinatra believed he was Maggio. Maggio was, he was from Brooklyn, not Hoboken, but he was a skinny, small Italian-American who was downtrodden. Everybody walked all over him. And in a lot of ways, especially after World War II, when his career went down the tubes, Sinatra felt very downtrodden. So the role was a natural for him.
James, explain to folks. My wife was actually asking me, Jennifer was asking me last night, knowing that I was doing the interview, she said, why did Sinatra's career, quote, go downhill after that? Why?
Oh, boy, a lot of reasons. First of all, his records stopped selling after the war. During the war, he sang these ballads of longing that were perfect for wartime. After the war, popular music changed. Everything got very perky, a lot of novelty songs. He wasn't good at doing those. He didn't like them. That was one thing. That was just one thing. But
was the Ava Gardner thing the other thing?
Well, that was a big other thing. And there was also the fact that Frank was cited at a mafia conference in Havana in 1947. And there was a Hearst columnist from the Hearst papers there, cited Frank having dinner with Lucky Luciano and started writing these columns about Frank. It was a very conservative time politically. Frank was also an FDR liberal, and the Hearst papers didn't like him for that. They hated the fact that he was cited with Lucky Luciano. Then suddenly, he's stepping out with Ava Gardner. This is a married guy with 3 little kids at home. He became like a devil in the eyes of America.
How many years was he having a real tough time?
From about 1947 until he won that Oscar. 7 years bad luck.
And James, did he have to fight to get the role of Maggio?
He had to fight. Ava Gardner had to fight for him. She had gotten sick of him at that point. He was such a loser. Her movie career was going straight up. His was going down. She went to the head of Columbia Pictures, Harry Cohn, who was the biggest lech in Hollywood, told him that she would do a free picture for him. And he looked her up and down and thought, what else is she going to give me for free? And he gave Sinatra the screen test. It turned out that the other guy who did a good screen test, Eli Wallach, was doing a play in New York, and Frank got the role. It was no horse's head.
There was not.
There was not.
Yeah, so explain to folks, a reference to The Godfather, an offer you couldn't refuse, another reference that may or may not have happened. But here's the thing. How does winning the Academy Award for From Here to Eternity, Maggio, change Frank Sinatra's professional life?
It changes everything, because before that he was seen as a loser in Hollywood whose career was over. He had a friend, a literary agent named Swifty Lazar, and Swifty Lazar said, he's a dead man. Swifty Lazar said even Jesus couldn't get resurrected in this town. Well, Sinatra could, and he did. From the night he won that Oscar, his career started going straight back uphill instead of downhill.
What kind of things happened for him?
A big deal was that he had started, even his record company, Columbia, dropped him during his bad years.
Right.
But he was picked up by a new company, Capitol Records.
Columbia to Capitol.
Columbia to Capitol, and he was introduced to a great arranger, young arranger he had never heard of.
Is that Nelson Riddle?
That is Nelson Riddle. And he started making these incredible albums with Nelson Riddle. And between the movie career being reborn and these incredible Capitol albums with Nelson Riddle, it was a career that shot up like a rocket in the 50s.
Help me on this. The night that Sinatra wins the Academy Award, does he go home alone?
Yes.
He goes home alone.
He goes home alone. He goes home alone. He had been, don't forget, at this point, this is 1954, he has left the mother of his children and his children. He had gone to Big Nancy's house before the Academy Awards.
Big Nancy, his wife.
Big Nancy is his wife.
Is Ava Gardner in Spain?
Ava Gardner is overseas. She is taken up with a bullfighter in Spain.
That is that bullfighter in Spain.
That is that bullfighter in Spain. So Frank has no wife. He stopped by to see his ex-wife, but he can't go back to her house after he wins the Oscar. He's alone. He's walking around Beverly Hills holding on to the statuette. He sits down on the steps of a church and he just has to think. His life has changed, but he's got nobody to tell it to.
The book also covers politics.
Yes.
Sinatra and the Kennedys, go.
Sinatra met Jack Kennedy at a Democratic fundraiser in LA in 1955, and these were two guys who instantly fell in love with each other. Jack Kennedy loved women. He loved beautiful women. He was a married man, but that didn't mean much to him, and in those days, politicians, especially attractive, charismatic politicians, were allowed to do what they wanted without being outed by the press. He loved beautiful women. Sinatra was the #1 world source of beautiful women, and he was knocked out by Sinatra's stardom, by his singing. Sinatra was an FDR liberal, dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. He saw this incredibly charismatic young politician and thought, this guy's going to be president. And so, and Sinatra was always attracted to power, and Kennedy had it in spades. So the two were made for each other.
The Kennedys shaft Sinatra.
Well, this is how it worked.
In Sinatra's mind.
It was a shafting, and it was a public humiliation. In March of 1962, Jack Kennedy was going west. He was going to spend some R&R time at Sinatra's Palm Springs house, and there was probably going to be a little bit of naughtiness that would go on there. His brother, Jack Kennedy's brother, Bobby Kennedy, was Attorney General of the United States, and Bobby Kennedy had just been informed by J. Edgar Hoover that the President of the United States had a lady friend, a woman named Judith Campbell.
Who had the relationship with Sam Giancana.
Who had a relationship with the head of the Chicago mob, Sam Giancana.
Yeah.
At the same time, she was having the relationship with Jack Kennedy. Judith Campbell had been introduced to Jack Kennedy by Frank Sinatra, and Bobby Kennedy said to his brother, you may not stay at his house.
Is that how he winds up, Kennedy winds up staying at Bing Crosby's house?
Stayed at Bing Crosby's house instead, and that was a huge public humiliation for Sinatra. Sinatra took it all out, never got mad at Jack Kennedy, took it all out on Bobby Kennedy and on Peter Lawford.
Peter Lawford, who was an in-law to the Kennedy family.
Yeah, married to Jack's sister.
Some of the other major themes in the book that really matter. Jerry Lewis relationship matter here?
I think they did a lot of benefits together, but largely Jerry has always said to me, you know, I did a book with Jerry. Jerry said that he and Frank really moved in different worlds. That had mostly to do with the fact that Dean Martin and Frank were so close.
The Dean Martin thing, big theme in the book?
Big theme in the book.
Close, but not close.
Close, but not close. That's correct.
I don't get it.
You have to look at the psychology of Dean Martin. He was a strange cat. He was a guy who was so gifted. He was incredibly handsome. He was everything that Sinatra wanted to be. He was big, tall, strong, handsome.
He had been a boxer in Cleveland.
Could have been a boxer,
and he was tied to the mob. He had mob friends in Cleveland.
Yes, he did, and they helped him a little bit. But Dean could sing. He could sing wonderfully, although he always made fun of his own singing. And the most valuable gift that Dean Martin had was he had an incredible sense of humor.
Yes.
Incredible sense.
Quick timing.
Lightning timing. And Sinatra idolized Dean Martin, and Dean Martin always kept himself at a distance from everybody, even from Frank.
He also pulled away at times when he didn't want to party anymore.
Yes.
As I read in the book. You know, I recently saw Tony Bennett. My wife and I went to see Tony Bennett at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, 89 years young. And the way he's introduced is, and you know this, he's introduced with a voice track from Sinatra saying, I want to introduce this young kid.
Yes.
The guy who's got the greatest voice out there today.
Yes.
Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett.
Go ahead.
Amazing singer. Big difference between Sinatra and Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett brought to his singing a quality of joy. You hear joy in hearing Tony Bennett sing. Sinatra never brought joy to his singing. Sinatra was like a walking opera. Everything was dramatic.
Tragic?
Tragic to a great degree, although when he's singing songs like You Make Me Feel So Young, I Got the World on a String, Fly Me to the Moon, you hear a great deal of buoyancy and and positive energy, but not joy. Joy was not something in Sinatra's wheelhouse.
Need to ask you this. By the way, the book is called The Chairman. Sinatra.
Ask me anything.
The Chairman. Here's my question. Sinatra's 100th birthday.
Yes.
Right? We celebrate it.
December 12th.
100 years from now, James
Yes.
Kaplan, will we still be talking about Frank Sinatra?
Absolutely.
Because?
We will, because of that voice. People are fascinated with Sinatra today, and even young people are fascinated with him because of a combination of the mystique and the voice, that Rat Pack swagger, right, and the voice. But my contention is that if you had the mystique without the voice, that would fade away over time. If sometime in the future, 100 years from now, 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now, some survivors happen to find a Sinatra CD and stuck it in the antique player of the CD and heard that voice and had no idea about the Rat Pack or anything, they heard that amazing voice, a voice like no other, they would know it was an incredible voice. So 100 years from now, easy, without breaking a sweat.
James Kaplan, one of my favorite authors, and you will love him after this. Sinatra, the Chairman, James Kaplan. Frank, the voice before this, great stuff.
Steve, thank you so much.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Oscar Health Insurance, Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, Johnson & Johnson, Valley National Bank, NJM, the Fidelco Group, and by the Russell Berry Foundation. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.